Hi, I'm Paul Deis, and I'm going to be your host for this little trip around the Central Coast Railroad Festival. The festival's been going on for more than 10 years. It's a mixture of home layouts, indoors, garden railroads, prototype railroads, the Railroad Museum. We're going to have a fun weekend. We're going to go and visit multiple layouts. We're going to go see the museum. We're going to try to share with you some of the fun that's around here on our Central Coast of California. We're at our first stop now. Good old friend of mine, George Gibson. Me and George have been modeling together since, I think the late 80s, maybe the early 90s. We used to be in a modular club together, and we have both moved on from the modular club to our home layouts. And George is a wonderful structure modeler, and he's modeling both an HO and HON3 in a couple of parts of his house and his garage. The details in his structures are something I envy and that I strive to do.
Yeah, hi, my name's George Gibson, and I am the owner-operator of the DK and Pacific Mountain Railway. The D and the K stands for Diana and Kenny. Those are my kids. It's a duplication of the Depression era years from the 20s to the 30s. I run a mountain railroad between the Pacific Northwest and Colorado Rockies. Those are the features that I like. I really enjoy building buildings and doing scenery work. I am not an operator. My trains do run, but I don't do any switching or anything like that. I have a bunch of favorite trains, and I have a layout, so I have a place to put my structures.
Hey, it's me again. We're going to go in and visit Bill Obermeyer. Bill is a nice modeler, models an HO of the Southern Pacific Railroad as it goes through some different vignettes that are important to him, like there's a cattle area, and we're on a cattle ranch right now, which is where he lives. Some nice trains running, and he's just really nice to host us today.
Hi, my name's Bill Obermeyer from the Tascadero, which means mud hole in Spanish, because all the stagecoaches get stuck here. But anyway, we're now a real city with tarred roads, and this is the Overland Railroad. I started making this about 11 years ago, and it's just freestyle, based on Santa Fe and Southern Pacific, right when the transition era was. It's kind of good therapy to get in here. I like doing the scenery more than anything, I think. And I enjoy seeing people like you watch what other people have made. And it gives you a lot of pleasure to see that.
We're at my house. I modeled the Southern Pacific Railroad in 1949 on the coastline, and this weekend I get to have other people come see my railroad. Really the reason I enjoy more than anything else of having and built this railroad is to share with others. And I love during these open houses when people, both local or traveling a distance, come here and look at what I've done. Hopefully they like what they see. Sometimes they see something that amazes them, and sometimes it makes them laugh. And I kind of try to go for both. I try to replicate the real world the best I can in HO, and most people find it enjoyable. And I find it really enjoyable for people to come and see what I've done. And I also designed the layout for doing operations. So today we're running trains for people to see the trains run. But I also really like it when I get 6 people come to my house and we spend 4 hours knocking freight cars around and do the work of the railroad for the day. But, it's why this whole festival is so wonderful. It's people getting to see what it is you do and how much fun you have doing it, and how much fun you have showing it to others and sharing it with others. And some are model railroaders, and some are just wondering, what is all this stuff going on, and why are these adults playing with toys? And hopefully when they leave, they've got an understanding it's not just playing with toys. It's modeling, and it's doing the history and the research and building things and just having fun. And hopefully they have fun coming to visit. Hello again. Hey, we're out at Mark Edwards' Garden Railroad. It's one of the few railroads in the area I've never visited. He's done a lot of work from the pictures I've seen over COVID. And it's going to be interesting to see. It looks like a fairly large size garden railroad out here in rural Santa Margarita. Just found out Mark did something pretty cool here. I love details on railroads. That's one of my favorite things to do on mine. He has this list of a scavenger hunt. And you got to try to find all these little tiny details and check them off on the list. So like the first one is, the wind makes me spin faster, then I pump more water. What is the name on my vane? And I can look over there, and there's the Arrow windmill pump. And now I got to go find, pioneers will not be able to see at night because they left me behind. What color am I? I got to think what that might be. A lantern maybe? So that's be the next thing to go look for. And there's a whole list of about 20 items here.
Hi, I'm Mark Edwards, and this is my wife, Michelle Edwards, and welcome to the Cascade Peak and Buena Vista Railroad in Santa Margarita, California. This railroad is a project that we've been working on for over 6 years now, and it's continuing to evolve and take shape. But a lot of our inspiration comes from our love for Disney parks around the world. And so a lot of the inspiration and the details that you see on the railroad come from those locations. You may not find something that's exactly the same as what you would find in a Disney park, but it definitely has been inspired by those locations. And you'll find some things that you'll no longer find in Disney parks, like the mine train through Nature's Wonderland and Rainbow Ridge and Cascade Peak, which are all features that used to be at Disneyland in California, but have been retired, but they now take up residence here on our railroad. So we really enjoy being outdoors, running the trains outside, plants. A lot of the rock work that we do with the railroad is really kind of doing rock work the same way that the smaller model railroaders do it. So we're actually carving and creating the rock work, and mixing that with natural rocks and stones to give it a natural look. Railroad is about 700 feet of track work total. There's 3 main loops. The main loop that circles the entire layout, the mine train, as I mentioned before, and the Main Street trolley. So we really hope that you'll come in and visit us here in Santa Margarita, and would love to share with you what we've created.
Hello again. Hey, we're at what I think is going to be one of the coolest things this whole weekend is the San Luis Obispo Railroad Museum, which is in the old SB freight house that was actually built by the Pacific Coast Railroad and shared by the Southern Pacific, and they would transfer freight from the narrow gauge to the standard gauge and also off the trucking. And now it is a museum, and 2/3 of it, and 1/3 of it, about 1,200 square foot, is an incredible museum quality HO scale layout. And if you look behind me, there's a freight house, and that is what I'm standing inside of right now. So in the one end of the freight house is this beautiful 1,200 square foot model railroad, and every scene is a replica as the real scene was in 1951. The person in charge of the railroad part of the museum is a master model railroader, and that's the standard he sets for all the structures. Most of the structures are scratch built based on drawings or pictures of the actual buildings that were there. And it's still a work in progress. They're working their way around the railroad. They've gotten most of the level from Surf to San Luis Obispo is in, and they're working on the upper level, and they're working on San Luis Obispo.
Hi, my name is Gary C. I've been a volunteer at the Railroad Museum here since 2008 and was on the board for a while. Our building that you see behind us is a Southern Pacific freight house that was built in 1894 when the railroad came to San Luis Obispo initially. It's a freight house, not a depot. A lot of people mistake it for a depot as a railroad building, but it's a freight house where rail freight came in on the far side and truck traffic came in on the close side, and it was moved back and forth between the two. It was due to be demolished in 2000 when the city was looking to build a bigger Amtrak parking lot. And at that point, our Railroad Museum, which was just forming, heard about it and worked with the city to save the building. And in return, we get to, for $1 a year, house our museum inside that building. In the building are basically two main parts. One, the model that models the Southern Pacific as it was in the 50s, from Surf up to San Miguel, as well as some Pacific Coast. And the other big part of the museum is the exhibits, where we work to display and interpret anything that has to do with Central Coast railroading. If it had anything related to the Central Coast, you'll find it here in our building. We'd love to have you come visit and see the museum for yourself. You can learn more about it at our website, which is www.slorrm.com.
All right, we've arrived at our next layout tour. A gentleman named Ron Hamley. He's got what I understand is a nice N-gauge layout. I've yet to meet Ron or see his layout, so it's going to be new to all of us. Well, that was fun. Very pleasant surprise. That's a beautifully detailed layout. Most of the buildings are scratch built, especially the wharf scene is just amazing. And Ron's story was pretty cool. His grandpa worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad. He's got a part of his old HO Pennsylvania Railroad up on the shelf above the N-scale layout. And even looking at the detail of what he built many years ago when he was younger in HO are amazing. And then his N-scale work is just outstanding. It's another one I'm glad we stopped to see. It's more inspiration that if you can make that much detail in N-scale, I don't have any excuses in HO. Hi, we're at the home of Anthony Harris, and Anthony models both an N and Z scale. And it's another one of the layouts in the area that I haven't got to see yet. Normally I'm always open for these events and don't get to go around and see the layout. So I'm excited to go in and see what he's built. Plus I love the people that can take on the challenge of Z scale. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do in that tiny, tiny scale.
My name is Anthony Harris, and welcome to my N-scale layout. And I've just been open for the 2022 Central Coast Railroad Festival's layout tour. My day was today, and I was presenting my railroad for the public to come see, and I had a great time doing it. This is my N-scale that has 3 separate tracks that can run 3 separate trains, so 3 different circuits, 3 different transformers. On this layout, there are no turnouts, and this is a DC layout. And so it's a little bit different from a traditional layout in that way. A lot of people integrate turnouts to be able to have operations on their layout and be able to change the tracks, and I have elected to not have that because the layout was built for rail fanning. Just the ability to put 3 different trains on, turn them on, and just sit back and just enjoy running it. In the end, I'm happy with how it is overall.
Well, that's fun. I actually do know Anthony. He's been to my house, and I've been here once before. Me and names don't always work out great. But it was kind of fun. It's 2 N-scale layouts and a Z-scale layout, and Anthony has got them put together for rail fanning, and that's what I found myself doing. I found a chair to sit in right next to the track, and The car's got some really cool graffiti on them and a steam engine that actually works in N-scale. It was a fun opportunity to do exactly what he called it, rail fanning, and just watching the trains run. And they run well on all three of his layouts. It's day 3. We're out looking at some more layouts, and this morning we got kind of a special treat. Good old friend of mine, Carl Kilvang, who I've known from back in my modular days in I think it was late 80s, early 90s when I first met Carl. Carl's a really incredible modeler. And his wife, Anita, who owns Central Coast Trains, has agreed to open up the layout for us to take a look today. Unfortunately, we lost Carl to cancer. So the layout is as it was, and it still has some people working on it, and it's just an incredible layout looking at the Feather River Canyon and the WP. And we'll get inside and take a look around and show you what Carl was building. Better than I expected to see of Carl's handiwork. A lot had been done since I was last here. God, I miss the guy. The amount of work and the detail into all the scenes and the size of the layout, and there's just the expanse. And he can run really good length trains, and they run flawlessly. One of the cool things to see is if you use Campbell models, there's a town called Quincy that you can get the different kits from, and he's modeled the town with all the Campbell kits and a lot of other kits. But it's just the level of detail is just amazing and beautiful work. And there's some friends who are continuing to keep the railroad operating since we lost Carl. I'm so glad we stopped here. This afternoon we're at the Norgrove Railway. Norgrove Railway is privately owned by a really cool guy named Peter. And Peter's mission now in life, besides this beautiful ranch we're on, is the collection and restoration of 2-foot gauge railroad equipment, including some World War I 2-foot gauge steam engines that were used in the trench warfare. And he's also collected engines and roller stock from other 2-foot railroads in South America and South Africa. And he has a full machine shop with full-time employees who are doing restorations from the rails all the way up. The process done, this guy's been built exactly perfect. So we're in the engine shop at Norgrove, where not only are they restoring locomotives, both steam and diesel powered, but they've even restored this beautiful fire engine from a pile of rust into a beautifully restored, fully functional fire engine. And we're just surrounded by a complete machine shop for doing locomotive repairs or rebuilds, or in this case, almost construction. And there's frames from different locomotives on either side of us, and boilers, and a lot of work in progress. And the place is spotless. I'm sure most of our garages are not this clean, and this is a working machine shop.
So, my name is Hayden Siebold. We're here at the Norgrove Railway, and I am the lead machinist here in our shop. And I'm standing in front of our 1918 Davenport 262 trench engine. It's a 2-foot gauge locomotive. It was built in Davenport, Iowa, 1918. And it was called a trench engine because it was designed by Baldwin initially to go overseas in Europe to assist in the First World War. And Baldwin designed it, but they couldn't keep up with the war production, so they gave their design to Alco, Davenport, and Vulcan, which in turn they each made their own design. The Davenport is pretty close parallel-wise to the Baldwin. There's not a whole lot of differences between the two. When we acquired the locomotive in about 2017, it was only a 260 chassis, nothing above the frame. The whole rear 6 feet, including the trailing truck, was gone. And over about a 3-year period, we completely rebuilt the locomotive back to its original state, as close as we could get it to. Using Baldwin drawings, referencing the third surviving Davenport locomotive that's at Fort Benning in Georgia. Using drawings and pictures from that, we recreated everything else as painstakingly close to original as we could. The only things we really added that are modern are the air brake systems for safety, and we've added a second water glass to the locomotive because it's got a brand new welded boiler. Everything on the running gear has been gone through and checked and made sure it's good, replaced and repaired as needed. And we've done everything in-house outside of the boiler. We built the new tanks. All the plumbing in the cab was done here in-house. That's where I come in, is doing the running gear stuff and whatnot for pins and bushings and all that. But yeah, so this is our locomotive, and it's been done since about 2020. And it's a wonderful locomotive to run. Runs at 200 psi. Brand new welded boiler that meets state and federal code. It's a wonderful locomotive.
Hi, I'm Nolan Kessler, and I'm a fireman on the 5240 at Norgrove Gardens. And I like to run a special cocktail, as I like to call it, of red oak wood in California and coal. And this is Pennsylvania coal that we order and have it shipped here. I like running this here specifically. It is a unique blend. It allows me to create a nice coal bed on top on which I stack oak wood pieces. And of course the coal, once it catches the oak very fast, and oak burns very hot and very long. And so once that coal bed catches the oak, you get a lot of heat really fast, and it makes for a great uphill run when you're going up a 3% grade. It allows me to keep pressure at about 190 or 200 the whole way up a 3% grade. And using this is very special, and it's a unique blend I like to use, so it's very good being here.
Well, we just finished our afternoon at Norgrove Railway. It was a really good afternoon. They're not quite running the trains for the public yet, but we could see all the trains, and they ran them back and forth in the yard and see all the shops, and it was a lot of fun. And it was a really good way to cap off a weekend of visiting maybe a third of what's actually here for the Central Coast Railroad Festival. We had to pick just enough to see each day to make it through the day, when there's a whole lot of model railroads and another 2 museums we didn't get to. So maybe we'll have to do this again next year and do another chunk of the Central Coast Railroad Festival. So hope next year you're here joining us. It was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad I got to do it. Take care.